A country once celebrated as an economic powerhouse is now moving towards the brink of collapse. South Korea rose from poverty to extreme prosperity in under 50 years, but now its economy is on the verge of collapse, and it's worse than you think. Despite the flashy skyscrapers and world-class tech brands, why is the country on the verge of a financial crisis? Let's find out.
Police tried and failed to arrest the president of South Korea on Friday as the political and military crisis escalates there. Greg Palkot has more.
South Korea's economic journey is often praised as one of the most remarkable economic success stories in modern history. Yet, this success story covers a darker reality that is becoming harder to ignore. Beneath the glittering high-rises, luxury cars, and booming industries lies an economic structure that is beginning to decay at an alarming rate. For decades, South Korea's economy has been dominated by its chaebols, which are large family-controlled conglomerates such as Samsung, Hyundai, and LG. These businesses have dominated nearly every sector of the Korean economy. Although these businesses helped propel the country's development, they are now becoming a major problem. Samsung is estimated to have contributed around 23% of South Korea's GDP in 2024. That is a suffocating percentage compared to the 2% of national GDP owned by the largest firm in the United States, Walmart. This over-reliance on a few giant corporations has hindered innovation, reduced competition, and led to an economic system where a few hold all the power. South Korea's economic success has also led to what is called a culture of consumption. As the country became wealthier, domestic consumption began to surge. But recent data shows that this is no longer attainable, as debt levels in the country continue to rise. In fact, household debt reached approximately 91% of the country's GDP in 2024, making it one of the highest household debt levels in the world. The country has been trapped in a borrow and spend syndrome, a phenomenon that cannot continue forever. Moreover, South Korea's once booming export market is beginning to show signs of weakness. The chaebols that once fueled the growth are beginning to get too comfortable, and with their dominance, innovation has dwindled. South Korea's GDP growth rate has been consistently declining over the past decade, from 4.1% in 2010 to just 1.1% in 2024. This decline, although not yet very concerning, signals an underlying problem. GDP growth alone no longer tells the whole story. The economy is in decline, but it's hidden behind the glamour of a modern, developed country. So, what is the real cost of this facade of prosperity? But more importantly, what is happening to its young and once vibrant population amid all these events? South Korea's economic troubles are compounded by a demographic crisis that could tear the country's fabric apart.
Let's now shift our attention over to South Korea. The country's fertility rate has slid 4 times compared to the 1970s.
South Korea has been highly successful in education and technology, yet its young people are increasingly becoming disillusioned with the promise of prosperity that was once so glamorous. This disillusionment is most evident in what has been termed the Sampo generation. This is a group of young South Koreans who have effectively checked out of the traditional paths to success laid out before them. The term Sampo translates to the sacrifice of 3 things. These include giving up on relationships, marriage, and having children. This notable shift in priorities is primarily driven by the pressures of a hyper-competitive society, where even the brightest students can find themselves suppressed by academic debt and without a clear path forward. Despite a high rate of university graduates in South Korea, youth unemployment is reaching alarming levels, with over 7% of young people under the age of 30 still struggling to find stable jobs. Why is this happening? Well, education, which was once regarded as the surest ticket to a better life, is fast becoming a burden. In 2024, the Korean Times reported that over 20% of South Korean university graduates were unemployed for more than 6 months after graduation, one of the highest rates among developed countries. The cost of education is also playing a significant role in all of this. The average cost of university tuition in South Korea is around $6,000 per semester, a figure that many families struggle to meet. For a country that had idealized education as the path to success, reality is changing very fast. The cost of education, combined with delayed wages and limited job opportunities, has pushed most young Koreans to desperation. It's no longer a personal problem, it's an economic one. With fewer people willing to have children and the birth rate dropping to the lowest in the world, South Korea faces the very real possibility of a demographic collapse. In 2024, South Korea's fertility rate was just 0.72 children per woman, which was far below the replacement rate of 2.1 children per woman. Fewer children translate into fewer indigenous workers in the future, and fewer of this type of worker translate into a shrinking workforce to support the growing elderly. This demographic crisis could lead to a decline in productivity and a narrow tax base, which would only exacerbate Korea's debt woes. So, why is this happening, and why are young South Koreans giving up on their future? South Korea is often cited as a model of economic success, but its labor force is facing a deep systemic issue. The country's toxic work culture, characterized by long working hours, extreme pressure, and a lack of work-life balance, has given rise to a severe mental health crisis among most Koreans. This is particularly true of the younger population, who are strained by the round-the-clock demands of an economy that prioritizes their productivity over everything else. The term gworosa, which means death by overwork, has become a chilling reality for many South Koreans. In 2023, a study found that nearly 50% of South Korean workers experience extreme stress, with the majority working more than 50 hours a week. As a result, South Korea has one of the highest suicide rates among developed nations, with nearly 40 people taking their lives every day, a significant portion of which are work-related. According to the OECD, South Koreans work an average of 1,901 hours per year, which is far above the OECD average of 1,751 hours. This is the equivalent of South Koreans working almost 300 hours more than employees in other countries. The mental health crisis among the younger workforce is also a significant concern. In 2023, 1 out of 10 South Koreans reported feeling symptoms of depression, with younger individuals being the most affected. The constant pressure to perform, together with a societal expectation to work for long hours, has led many to experience burnout, anxiety, and other mental health-related issues. Despite the growing awareness of mental health issues, there remains a stigma surrounding mental illness in South Korea, and as a result, many individuals continue to suffer in silence, unable to access the support they need to cope with the overwhelming stress and anxiety they face.
A set of initiative was unveiled today to change the way South Korea treats and views mental health in order to have the country's already high suicide rate within 10 years.
South Korea is dominated by its largest business conglomerates, including Samsung, Hyundai, Kia, and LG, which have driven the country's economy for decades.
Samsung produces everything from medical supplies to energy, and they have substantial holdings in finance, resort management, and insurance.
The conglomerates control not only the economy, but also the politics and society of South Korea, because they have influence that extends far beyond the corporate sector. Their grip over resources and policies in South Korea has also stifled innovation, competition, and entrepreneurship. The chaebol dominate the South Korean economy. As of 2024, the 5 largest chaebols, Samsung, LG, Hyundai, SK Group, and Lotte, controlled nearly 70% of the country's GDP. The conglomerates have a presence in nearly every sector, including electronics, automobiles, construction, and finance. Their widespread presence has helped them to control segments of the economy and limit the space for small businesses to maneuver. While these businesses have been a significant contributor to South Korea's economic growth, their dominance has also created numerous structural problems. One of them is the market's lack of competition. With a few firms controlling a significant portion of the economy, it becomes hard for new startups or small businesses to penetrate the market. This monopoly influence has led to market inefficiency, in which the largest companies continue to grow while the smaller ones are barely hanging in there. In addition, the power of these conglomerates has eaten deep into the political system of South Korea, making it almost impossible for meaningful reforms to take place. The close relationships between political figures and these corporate giants have created a system in which politicians rely on the cabals for financing their campaigns and other forms of public support. In return, the cabals lobby for favorable laws and regulations that allow them to maintain their dominance. This cozy relationship between the South Korean government and big business has led to a situation where the public's needs are often overlooked in favor of protecting the interests of the elite. This lack of accountability has had far-reaching consequences for South Korea's economy. While the cabals continue to thrive, their monopoly power has hindered the emergence of new businesses, leading to stagnation in many sectors. In industries like technology, where South Korea once led the world, the dominance of a few large companies has made it difficult for smaller startups to compete. Cabals' economic control has not just suppressed innovation, but also contributed to the rising wealth inequality in South Korea. While senior managers in these companies accumulate billions of dollars in revenue annually, the average South Korean worker remains underpaid amid rising living costs. The economic gap between the rich and poor in South Korea has increased tremendously over the years. This has led to social unrest in the country. The influence of the cabals extends beyond the labor market, where employees are happy to tolerate terrible working conditions as long as their jobs are secured. In a society where job security matters most, the majority of South Koreans are prepared to endure lengthy working hours and suffocating work cultures just to work for one of the conglomerates. This system has created a culture of exploitation and disparity, whereby the interests of the privileged few are placed above the needs of the majority. The dominance of South Korea's cabals has created an unsustainable economic environment for long-term prosperity. As South Korea faces a range of economic challenges, the question remains: can the country break free from the grip of the cabals, or will its economy collapse in the near future? Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and just before you go, watch our next video on your screen.